Yeah, you're really
I'm watching this
burying the
thing.
lead in this story. The mandate was never to film
No,
cheerleaders
no, I know.
warming up. We were there specifically to film.
All right, welcome to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with E. This is the podcast for sports videographers. How you doing, E?
Great. A bit hot, but it's okay. Yeah, doing good. Sorry.
Yeah, well, it's finally summer, right? Like we go from winter to summer in Montreal for some reason nowadays. There's no more spring. It's just cold or hot. So I'll take the heat. I'll take the heat for now. It's
It's
definitely,
the humidity that's a bit harder to deal with.
yeah,
Heat's
for
not that
sure.
bad, but
So before we jump into our topic, I hadn't seen you in about a week, and I want to talk about the near-death experience that you put me in, my friend. So, do you want to start the story, or you want me to start the story?
oh, you go. Because I'm still not sure it's actually true. So
I have the footage to this show. So, E and I go to the Montreal Alouettes to film a behind-the-scenes video for them on their home opener. And our mandate is to film. E had a really tough job. He had to film behind the scenes of cheerleaders. So I filmed E filming cheerleaders most of the time. I was just filming his reaction, his smiles, watching his zoom in techniques. So we had to film the cheerleaders warming up, and then it was to capture these pilots and the game production, organize a flyby with I guess fighter pilots, fighter planes. I'd say, right?
yeah, you're really
I'm watching this
burying the
thing.
lead in this story. The mandate was never to film
No,
cheerleaders
no, I know.
warming up. We were there specifically to film like a drive-by from like F-18 jets that fly by every home opener. But like while we're there early, we're making the most of filming the whole. These guys rehearsing for the home opener sequence, like with the cheerleaders, also the videos, all that sort of stuff. But the main thing was the jets, because the Alouettes, actually, I learned that like that the whole point why they have them every home opener is because the Alouettes are like some type of fighting jets that used to exist back in the day in the Canadian Army or something like that. So that's why they always have them at the first game. My godfather taught me that.
Well, as I've been gone through my footage, I have more footage of cheerleaders than I have of the flyby of the jets. Okay.
Yeah, because your army buddies showed up at like 5:30 when they were supposed to be there at 4.
Yeah. So actually, that was kind of funny too. It turns out that the pilot, the guy who's in charge, I went to high school with him, so we knew each other. So it was kind of like a high school reunion at this video shoot, totally by coincidence. So E and I were filming all the behind the scenes of them setting up, getting ready for game day, getting all their timing, all that technical stuff. That stuff went really, really well. And then E and I had to split up. And that's when I had a near death experience. Because while E was all nice and cozy down on the field with the cheerleaders, I went upstairs on the roof, which isn't a big deal. It's probably 20 feet up in the air. You take a ladder, you go on the roof. Now, we're in one section. They say, oh, we got to walk down to the other section. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Until they told me, oh, you have to jump from one roof to the other. And it's about maybe a 4.5 foot gap. Now, normally, the younger, more athletic Lance, this would have been no problem. But now I'm a little older. I was trying to remember when the hell was the last time I even jumped. Okay. That's how bad it is. And now I have a camera in my hand. So I'm petrified like crazy. So I had to toss my camera. The pilots jumped over first. I had to toss my camera. They caught it, got my camera, and then I had to run and jump, which I made the first time. Now we film all this stuff, all these jets, about 25 minutes, a half hour on this roof. Then I have to go back and jump again. But for 25 minutes, all I could think about is falling on this jump, like to the point where I was like having a mini panic attack. So, like the manly guy I am, I had to reach my hand over, and when I jumped, one of the pilots grabbed my hand and pulled me over back over the gap because I had built it up in my head so much that there was this huge, huge gap. Where normally I would jump that no problem, but under the circumstances, I was very scared and scared for my life, and it was a very, very strange feeling. So the next time I go on a roof, I'm going to have to ask some questions. One,
Hmm.
do I have to jump to another roof? Yes or no?
Sounds romantic to me. Sounds like you had a little moment with high school sweetheart. Like, sounds
Actually,
perfect.
Nick took care of me. He held my hand very gently. He pulled me over to safety. So I really appreciate that Nick was there from high school.
Yeah, exactly. There's a silver lining in everything. Like, at least it was someone you knew. Like,
Exactly.
made it.
I should have brought my GoPro so I could have like attached. I did have a GoPro, but I should have brought it so I attached to me, and I could have maybe done a point of view of my jump from one rooftop to another. I
Hmm.
just wasn't mentally prepared for it. Like he told me, "Oh yeah, wait till you see. I have a surprise for you up there." I thought maybe the planes were going to come close and like brush our hair, or I don't know. That's what I was thinking. I didn't
Hmm.
think I had to jump from one to another. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we keep meaning to tell them that they need to put like a little ladder or a bridge there." I'm like, now's the time. You guys have been up here like 5, 6 times, and now is the time that you assume that it's getting
Hmm.
dangerous because you're with me and I'm scared like crazy. Because I'm not the greatest with heights. I'm okay, but the fact that once I did that first jump, honestly, for 25 minutes is all I can think about was jumping back over, and I built so much stuff up in my head. Anyway,
Jeez.
that made for an interesting shoot that I won't forget for a while. The footage actually looks really really good though, so I'm happy with that. It's really neat to see how like the pilots communicate and how they set up all
Hmm.
that timing. Like they go off the timing of the official clock, like world clock. They time the anthem singers speed of that, and they had it to the second. Like it was dead on. It was perfect. So like it's crazy to see him actually sitting there and calculating all this time of how it's going to take, because the guys were like say 50 seconds out, and he knows if they do I don't know 200 miles an hour, well they're there exactly at the note that they want them to be.
Yeah.
So that was really really cool to see that. Everything was perfect except for jumping from roof to roof. That was it.
Just get the shot.
I got the shot of him. The plane shot, no, not so good. Not so good. For some reason, it was like a miscommunication. He told me they were coming over one building, and I had this beautiful shot set up, and all of a sudden, boom, they were like a little bit to the right out of my shot. But the best part about it is I was working with UE, so I knew you had my back and you got the shot. So when they do the edit, they got the pilot perfect, and then they got your shot. So in the edit, it's going to look perfect, right? I did have a backup
Yeah.
camera though, a GoPro up, so I do have them that way.
Hmm.
The things, but from my
That's
Sony,
probably the best shot, to be honest, because I got it both. Because they came twice, like before the anthems or after the anthems, and
yeah,
right
and
before the game started.
yeah, which I didn't know. For some reason, no one told me that. I thought like it was one, and I was like, all right, we're good, we're done.
but both times I felt like, because you can only see jets and sky. Like I thought like I should probably gonna with like a wider lens and try to get some of the bleachers as well, just to give it a bit more context. But other than that, I'm sure at least the planes were in the shot. Like they were there, but I felt like my shot was a bit dry. Like it was just like two planes passing by. Like you couldn't get the full context of the stadium and everything.
Yeah, I had a problem. It's like my focus went soft when I hit the sky. It was like I don't
Well,
know.
there
It
was a
was
lot of smog.
yeah, there was. They actually almost delayed the game because of it. But anyway, when I put my camera up, it kind of went on focus, and I caught them, but they're so fast that you don't really have much time. It's a lot easier to see them farther out, but I caught them too late. But that was our little story from last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, of how I
And you
almost
went to
died.
celebrate your near death experience in Vegas.
That's it. I was I was
Like
away for
life's too short.
well, that's what else I was thinking too. Because so I was headed out to Vegas for a week after that shoot, and I was like, I'm gonna fall, break my ankle, and then I'm gonna be on a plane with a broken ankle. And what am I gonna do in Vegas for a week? And I was there for hockey. Like I wasn't there just to. It wasn't a vacation. Like I'm there for hockey. So all these things were running in my mind in the jump, and then I realized I got this jump, no problem. As long as Nick holds my hand and gives me safety, I'm good to go.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. enough story time. Back to the today's topic. You want to talk about today's topic, E?
We're talking editing, basically trying to discuss the ways that we each sort of set up our projects, the ways that we try to be as efficient as possible, as fast as possible, like basically discuss our workflows, because editing can take a lot of time, and sometimes we always, especially when you're beginner, you always wonder if you're doing things the right way, if you're setting up the right way, or if you're perhaps wasting a lot of time, and whatever you're doing in 5 hours could potentially be done in three, but you just don't know because you don't really have the right workflow. So yeah, that's unless I'm missing something, I think that's pretty much the gist of it, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole point is like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you edit, you kind of get stuck in this like time warp where you waste time, and it shouldn't be taking you 5 hours to edit a 60-second hype reel. Not that it does all the time, but there are times where you kind of overthink your edit, or maybe you're not prepared for that edit by trying new effects in that edit. But if you're on a deadline, or if you have other projects coming up, it's all about saving time, because we've all been there, where we're stuck against deadlines and we want to be faster, we want to be more efficient. Like you've gone out, you filmed this great footage, and you think like, oh, that job's done. Well, no, the hardest part is the editing. It's how are you going to make those shots? How are you going to tell that story? So the idea today is just to, talk about project setups, workflows, time saving habits, and tell you guys of how we waste time all the time. I'm constantly wasting time.
So what's the longest you think you spent on let's say like a 60 seconds or less video?
I could say easily half a day, easily,
Well, it's not too bad.
maybe more. I'm just
We're
thinking
talking
like,
like fully edited,
oh,
like hype
fully.
reels,
I could spend a
something. Yeah.
day. I could spend it if it's for a client. Like in the past, say like when I was doing Venko stuff, we did like year recap videos and stuff like that. By the time you get all the footage, everything organized, yeah, you're looking at a day and a half for like a minute and a half, easy.
Yeah, that's not bad. Because I was gonna say, like for me, like it, to be honest, like if I'm working for a client, that's the reason why it doesn't take too long. Is because they're only paying you for a certain amount of, they're only paying you a certain amount, which for you equals like a day's worth of work. Then you try to do it in a day, obviously, because after that it becomes kind of on your dime. So that will put a time limit on whatever I do on that video. But like when if I'm doing something for myself and I'm trying to, let's say it's like a show reel or something that I really want to be perfect, I could easily spend 3, 4, 5 days on and off. Like I'll probably work on other things during those 5 days, like because I'll have other things to do. But yeah, it can take me a week until I'm fully happy and seal of approval. That is it. No more changes, sort of thing.
Well, that's the hardest part, right? You're editing all these projects, and it's when is it ready? Like as an editor, or say like an artist, right? Like a painting, like, you have that you're doing this painting, and is when do you actually stop? When is it completed? And with video editing also, when you're working with clients and you're under restraints because of time or because of a
Mhm.
budget, it's easier to say when the project ends. But like your example you just gave, when it's yourself, it's harder to stop and say, okay, I'm 100% satisfied, because I'll go back to videos for myself and I'll be like, oh, I could just change this, or maybe I should change that. And it's like, it's hard to draw the line to say, this is finally done, I'm happy with it, let's go.
Mhm.
Especially when it's for yourself, for sure, for sure. So how long can you sit at your computer before like your brain checks out and you kind of scroll onto something else and come back? Or how does that work for you? Or are you like fully focused, one of these guys where you put your phone away, you just cram down for 2-3 hours and get the job done?
Well, I try to become that guy. During the day, it's a lot harder because there's a lot more, because there's always going to be like emails, and I get, DMs and things that sometimes it's like, oh, I can, take care of that later. But sometimes it's more um, time sensitive. And if it's an email, it might not be too bad. But if it's a DM, that automatically puts me on Instagram or on TikTok or something, and then it's, you read the comment, you reply, and the next thing you know, you've been watching reels for for half an hour. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. Also with the Facebook group that I run, I go approve a few posts, and again, I'm stuck watching reels. So so yeah, I try to stay away from that. I'm not very good, but I'm trying to. But which means that I'm usually more efficient later in the day. Like it's easier when there's a lot less going on. It's a lot more quiet, and yeah, I'll be able to put in like several hours in a row without doing anything other than maybe a snack or something. But yeah, I don't think I could do a 6 to 8 hour shift without doing anything else. Like I'll have breaks just for, my own sanity, and just and it's also good, like if you've done like a long segment, or you've been working on an effect for a while or something, like that's kind of a self-contained thing. um it's good to like take a break, do something else, and then when you come back to it, you can watch it and see if you really like, because when you're into it for hours, it's hard to sort of really appreciate or see the mistakes or things like that. So sometimes just to step away from it and then come back to it later, you see it with, fresh eyes, and it's a bit more objective than, just trying to do it all in one go. And a lot of times as well, it's good to just actually finish it as sort of as a draft, then go to bed, and then the next day watch that draft and then work on improvements and changes.
You seem to have fresher eyes, right? And you're ready to seal it up. It's strange working for yourself. Like I'm the boss, right? And I don't have a work day. No, but you don't have like a 9 to 5. Like when I worked as a full-time video editor, I knew between the hours of say 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. Okay, sorry, I was never really there at 5. I was always gone way before that. But in between that time frame, I was there to edit, to finish my projects and that. But now working for myself, it is harder during the day, or when like now it's summer, so my son's home, my wife's home. You get distracted during the day, so I still block time, but I also block time to be free, right? So early in the morning, I'll do some work, and then in the evenings now, that's a nice route. Like once 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock comes, I'll come down for 2, 3 hours, and I'll get a ton of work done without any distractions, because I'm not getting emails at that time. I'm not, getting asked about the pool or whatever else is going outside of my house. I could just focus on my work. But I need to put away my phone. I need to close the other apps, because I will get distracted, and that just sucks time. Where from that 9 to midnight shift that I'm doing, I want to really maximize those 3 hours or 4 hours, depending. And that is challenging when you're the boss, or you dictates the deadlines. Well, try and get it done, because there's a little thing. If you give yourself 30 days to finish a project, guess what? That project will take 30 days. So I really try now. Like I had a shoot yesterday. Well, boom, I already started editing it today. Is it due tomorrow? No. But the faster I get it done, the faster I can give an invoice, the faster I can send those to my clients, the faster I feel like they're happy. They have something that they get to see. So it's tricky and tough, but it's something that you have to adjust to and you have to do.
Mm.
At least that's how I feel. All right.
Oh, makes sense. Well, let's get into more like technical side of this conversation. So, when you start your project, what's your sort of, do you have bins already, sort of a bin structure where you'll have all your stuff sort of ready to go? Do you just sort of start editing your footage and then adds assets like musics or sound effects or whatever to your project as you're building it? Like, what's your strategy like from the start?
So I used to have it where you open up my Premiere Pro and boom, I had certain bins with certain folders already ready to go, right? They would automatically be in your project when you start a new project. I don't do that anymore. The reason why I don't do that anymore is because I have different clients with different needs. So it's easier for me to just, they have a folder and I bring their stuff in, that their assets they need. But every project I work on is structured the same, like you have your timeline folder, you have your footage folder. I always name my footage with days and type of camera. So I know like this day, so June 18th, for example, FX3, June 18th, A7 IV, full date, like, you know, 06, 18, 2025. I always put all that, give myself as much information as I can. And then the first
Like,
thing,
let's say you're filming like a hockey game or something like that.
yeah,
Will it just be like all the footage from the hockey game in one bin?
well, depend if I'm using different cameras. No, the bin
Yeah,
will have
but I mean, like,
every
yeah,
camera.
from but each camera will be a bin.
Yeah,
It won't be like more like subcategories or anything.
no, 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 no. Because what I'll do is I'll do like a pre-edit. I'll go through all the footage. I'll have like different timelines set up, my editing timeline and my footage timeline. I'll go through all the footage, all the best shots I want, and as I'm seeing them, I'm already starting to build my final timeline. That's how I kind of work to save time. But when I'm working with these clients in corporate and that, like, you know, they have certain music banks that I have to use. They have certain lower thirds that are already built. So that's why I'm not having it come up right away into my project. I'm bringing that stuff in. I just do it that way because I preferred it. I preferred it where I had like all my special effects or all my say for sports videography, all that stuff was already there. Like say your LUT packs and all that. Your sorry, not your LUT packs, your sound effect packs and all that. If I was just doing sports back in the day, say for the Habs, when I opened it, I would have those assets already in my project because I would be using the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
But now that I'm doing a variety of different stuff, I don't do it like that. It did take a while to get used to not having access to all your stuff all the time. But for me to have every client spin and just drag their stuff in takes 2 seconds. I'm
Mm.
still organized. What about you? So like, you know, you're mainly sports. You have your own effects packs and sound effects and that. So when you open up your projects, are they already automatically in there right away?
Yeah, well, Premiere has there's templates, there's project templates that you can use. So I have a Beyond the Game template that I'll use, and then so when I create a project, there'll be like a music folder, a sound effects folder. The music folder will be empty, but the sound effects folder will already have all the different sports and like whooshes and things like that that I use fairly regularly. There'll be a footage folder that'll be empty. There'll be like a graphics folder that's, well, if we're talking specifically my Beyond the Game videos, like there'll already be like my opening credits, my end slide for the YouTube stuff. There'll be like the little animation to like click on like that says, you know, subscribe, all those things. And there'll be like a sequence folder in which I'll put all my sequences. But and my LUTs as well, like the ones that I use, because you know, normally because they're custom LUTs, um, you'd have to either put like a Lumetri color effect, then import the LUTs and adjust it, blah blah blah. You can put them like in Premiere where basically they come up as the where the default LUTs are. Like there's a specific folder where you could put them, but that list is just so long, so it's a bit annoying, and you can't sort of sub category. So what I do is basically I create presets where I'll have like all the LUTs that I typically use a lot. I'll, you know, you just basically apply a Lumetri color effect. You put the LUT in, you adjust I'll put the intensity at say 50%, which I'll adjust anyway according to what I'm using it on. But like once I've done that, just adding like an empty sort of Lumetri color effect with just that LUT applied at 50%, then I'll save it as a preset, give it the name of that LUT. So then in my effects tab, like there'll be all my LUTs and they'll be like ready to go. So all that to say that yes, when I do start a project, all my bins are already created. All the things that I use often are there ready to go. Um, Graphics as well, things like that. So yeah, that's usually how I roll. But then with the footage, I do a similar thing to you, but then I do because the thing like the footage dump sort of sequence that you described, where you just go through the footage and you put all the good shots sort of in there, and that's what you use to build your real sequence. I only do that for like smaller edits. Like if I have to do like a short sort of thing and I don't have tons of footage to go through, I'll just do that. Otherwise, if I have a lot, I'll probably stick to like just going from the bins because I'm fairly good at always doing the blocking the lens for each good shot that I film. So technically, just going through the bin, putting it in thumbnail mode, I can see where the good shots are. I don't really need to put them on the sequence. So what I do is I'll break the footage up where in my, let's say, my FX3 folder for a basketball game, I'll probably, first of all, if I'm doing like behind the scenes and the game, I'll separate those two. I'll also separate game action from crowd shots, for example. Like everything that's like a cutaway that's not the game action will be separated from the game action, and then the game action itself will be probably sub divided like by quarters or something, so that way each folder is, there's not that many clips in them, and it's easy to go chronologically and know where everything is and just go get the good ones and all that. So I don't need to like identify each clip. I don't need to label them or to put them on a sequence. It's just, it's organized in a way that if I need crowd footage, I just go in that tab, it's ready to go, they're all there. If I need action from the fourth quarter, it's all there. Then it goes pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly. You know what? Actually, when I first started, I used to not use the visual aid of seeing your clips. I used to actually just click on the box and go all the way down because I had a slower computer at the time, and I found having those clips open made it slow. But now that I have a fast computer, does that is probably one of the best ways to save time, is having your clips where you can get a quick little visual, especially, like you're blocking your hand. So you go through and you see right away the 10 best plays or 15 best plays of that
But
game.
you're right, you do need like a fast computer and also a big screen.
Yeah.
If you're on the phone or on a very small screen, it's probably not. It's taking so much real estate, and then your timeline's this big, and it's all like, yeah. I've got like an ultra wide, like 49-inch screen, so that's mainly what it's for.
Well, exactly. No, but when you're a new videographer or editor, you don't realize to always use that mode, and that mode
Mm,
does save you a lot of time because it gives you a quick visual reference right away. And it definitely speeds up your editing process because you'll look and you'll be like, okay, and the way you break it down to quarters definitely helps, especially for like basketball or that, because in your edits you are mostly telling a story, so it does help to know how the chronological order goes of it.
yeah. Or even just for you to remember like that play that you're looking for, like, "Oh, I remember happened in the third quarter." Like it saves you time to searching for stuff.
So if you're deep down in a beyond the game edit, if I open up your bin right now, your project now, would I be impressed or horrified? Because sometimes as we're working, we're throwing in a graphic fast and you're doing this, sometimes not everything
No,
gets
I'm
put in the
pretty
bin.
clean.
Yeah, you're pretty clean.
Yeah, I'm very clean because I worked in when I was working in television, especially, and then even with you at the Canadians, or after that in more television actually. But yeah, I've worked in teams a lot in my life, so like I definitely enjoy working by myself. But I kept that discipline of the content being at somewhere where like I don't get those. Well, I do because I changed, I moved and things like that. So I do get the offline media here and there because changed my system. Like went from hard drives like everyone else. Like went from external hard drives to server, and sometimes the server structure changes, or you. So I do when I go to like very old projects. There's stuff that's offline, but I'm good for like before let's say I download music, before I put it in my project, I'm going to make sure I put it where it's going to be for forever, or for a while anyway. And from there, I'll import it so that it's from the right place. I'm not going to do that thing where people do, where it's like the music go into the download folder and then they import it in the project, and then they eventually move it and they're like, oh, now I got to relink everything. Like I'm really good at like setting up everything properly on my server and then importing stuff. And within the project itself also, like I hate having, yeah, all those clips. That like I'm pretty good at putting everything in the bin that it needs to be in straight away. So well, when I say straight away, sometimes, especially me doing my YouTube content. Like I do grab a lot from old videos or old shoots and stuff. So I'll go into another project and I'll just grab that clip because it's already color corrected and stuff. So I'll just copy paste it and stuff. So there's a lot of, then I go to my bin and there's all these like footage like bins that been added into my projects. So I have to clean it up. But what I usually do in that case is that like I create a folder that's called like archives, and all that footage that comes from previous projects, I just put it in the archives folder. So there's all the normal stuff that I organize, and then there's like an archives folder, and all the old stuff is in there. That's usually how I deal with it. So no, I'm pretty clean.
You know what? It taught us to be clean because when we had to share some projects sometimes, right? When you work in a full time setting, and there was nothing worse than opening up someone else's project and seeing that offline icon, and you'd be like, "Where is this?" And you have to go in there on their computer and download it and send it in their downloads and send it back to you. So it does really teach you how to be organized. And even today, like whenever I download a clip, I put it right away in my hard drive or in my work area so that won't go offline after. But when you transfer it to your main backup drive and all that, you're always going to get one or two clips that you're going to have to relink. So that's kind of a little tricky. But hey, now when I'm editing projects and you have revisions, I try to always put like when I'm working, I have a working file and I'll name it like, so say Beyond the Game Alouettes working file. And then once I'm done with that edit, I'll make a duplicate and I'll call it V1. And then I'll send it off to approval. And I always have a V1, V2, V3, whatever. And then I have final. Now, how do you label it? Because it's funny. I was looking online just to kind of see what other people do, and it's like final, final, really final. Like people put all the kinds of stuff. So I try and just go with the V1, V2. Even if I'm sending clients, like I have a G drive and my clients have a folder in there. Once I move on to a new version, I delete the old version from them. I still have it in my exports, so I keep an export folder with every version just in case, because it's all happened where your client's like, "Oh, I like the second version better now that you're on version 6." But how do you do that? Do you do a V1 and then a final, or what's your kind of go-to for your sequence?
Well, I think we've all been guilty of the final thing because either because you're trying to push the idea that it's final, I think going in a bit of like, reverse psychology thing, or sometimes it's just that it's meant to be. Oh, last change, it's perfect. I love it the way it is. We just need to change that one thing. So you do that change, and then you send what you think is the final version. But then they come back. Oh, you know what? We just figured out the music's not that great. But yeah, no. Otherwise, well, typically, yeah, it's V1, V2, V3 until it's the end. But I once I know that these other sequences, we're talking sequences in my project, like once I know there's a sequence, because in the project itself, it's probably gonna like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So I tend to delete those extra copies just so I keep it clean and I know which sequence is what. And especially when I was back in Australia, for example, there's these copies that are just previous versions, but there's also different copies. If I'm doing like a high preel, because I was doing a lot of international sports. So, for example, if I'm doing like the Australian soccer team is playing like 3, 4 games, exhibition games or qualifying games in Australia, there's going to be one in Melbourne, one in Sydney, one in Canberra, one in whatever. So every time, because it's a big screen video, there's obviously going to be a moment that says, come on, Melbourne, stand up or make some noise, blah, blah. So I have to and also all these different stadiums have different like aspect ratios. So when I'm basically the point of my long boring story is that every city has its own video, so you have to make the right video for the right place and the right aspect ratio and the right text. So there is several versions of the final sequence, so I do have to keep it clean just so that I don't lose track of what's what. So there'd be very specific sort of naming, and also I'll probably do a different color label just to make it obvious, things like that. So So yeah, I do try to keep my sequences clean. I get rid of what's obsolete and that I know I'll never use again, and I keep the good stuff. But I never delete footage though. Well, I do, but many, many, many years later.
I had a similar situation at Christmas for Hockey Canada. I did a TV spot for their 50-50 for the World Juniors. I had 55 exports of the same commercial, and I had to change silly things on each one, like mice type, venue location, and then ratio. So that was hard, but you know what? Being organized in a project and labeling it properly so everybody that I send it to understands what version I gave them really, really worked. And double, triple checking really made my life easier. And I had no hiccups with having all those exports with similar content, stuff that you wouldn't even notice. Like I'm talking a different Tim Hortons logo that like I couldn't even tell you the difference between them, but there was a difference supposedly. And the mice type that I couldn't read anyway on my computer screen, and I'm pretty sure you couldn't read it on your TV screen. As long as I knew that that was the right copy paste that I put in there, we were good to go. So I sent it off. But it was challenging having like that many exports of the same timeline with different little details that you don't even know. All right, so now back to editing. When walk us through your editing. So what are you going with first? Are you going with like a story in your head? Are you going with like some visuals that you have lined up? Are you starting with music? How are you? What's your first move to save time?
Well, it depends what we're talking about, like in terms of the type of video that I'm producing. But if there is, whether it's a story or more like a concept, I'd say, because like where we're going more like if it's a hype reel, like are we focusing on the action or focusing on the atmosphere? Or are we focusing on the rivalry? Like it's more that. And once I know what I'm focusing on, probably depending on the type of footage I have access to, because sometimes I'm filming, sometimes I'm not. I'm just given footage. And so yeah, once you know what you're going after in terms of the concept, then my next step will be the music. And once I find the right music, I can kind of see where the ups and downs will be, and how the structure of the video will. It's basically starting to come together. So I'll edit the music so that I'm locked in sort of the duration, make sure the music's approved, and then start building. Not necessarily chronological. Like often I do chronologically, but I'll probably start with the big moments that like the first 5 seconds. That's a bit of a build up, especially for a stadium video. Um, I'll probably not necessarily start with that. I'll start with the big bang sort of moment that happens after, and then build from there and fill the gaps and add once I'm happy with the content itself and played with speed ramping all these things and I'm really locked in content wise, then I'll probably add a few visual effects, add a few sound effects, and then add a color grade, and then the revision game begins. That's typically the typically the order in which things go.
That's pretty much how I do it too. The only thing that I really try not to do while I'm building my sequence, and a lot of people get caught in this trap. They'll edit a little piece and they'll go back to the beginning and they'll watch it up to where they are and they'll go back to the beginning and watch again. No, I just keep building. I keep building. Once I feel like I've reached to where I want it to go, whether it could be, say I'm building a 2-minute video and I'm at 3 minutes, I know I'm going to be trimming after that. But I already kind of have the pacing. I kind of already have the sound set. Nothing's like exactly cemented in, but I have my story now. Now it's for me. I go back and then I fine tune everything, and then I'll go back and watch it and make sure I'm good. So it's like it saves the passing through. Because when I first started editing, I would catch myself. I'd be editing and I'd go back to the beginning, and you watch the beginning, and then you go back to the beginning. But like when you watch the beginning 30 times, it doesn't do anything for you. It's all those clips are there. Get to
Oh,
the
you're
end.
losing a lot. You're wasting a lot of time.
Exactly. Get to the end, then go and make sure that it's built the way you want and as efficient as you want. Because a lot of people do that. They go all the way back and forth, back and forth. There's no point of watching the beginning. Just keep building, building, building until you get to where you want to go, and then you trim it and finalize.
Hmm. And you always edit like to the music? Like is changing the music, for example, mid edit or at the end always automatically a huge problem? Or
It's only a huge problem once I've finalized it and I send it to a client, and the client asks for me to change the music. But for me, when I'm on that, say that third pass and I change the music, it's not so bad because I haven't cemented anything. I haven't done all my effects yet. I'm kind of just lining up my cuts, and then I'll throw in the effects and color grade after. Um, no, it's not the end of the world. But when you've gone through those three phases and you send it to a client, and the client then wants you to change the music, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. It feels like you're starting all over. You're not really, but it feels like it because you are happy with the edit or you're committed to it, and it feels like they don't understand that how big of a piece the music is for clients. Changing the music is always like, oh, just change the music. It's not a big deal. They don't realize how much stuff are time to it, especially when you're adding in effects and all that too. So it is tough. Like I'll even go say if I have a sequence I really like and the client wants to change music, I'll be like, okay, but why don't we break the video up into different sections, and this section the music stays, and then we'll switch to another segment after, and that works sometimes too. And it does save me a bit of time on the revisions, because revisions are what kill a lot of time too, right? It's something that we don't even have on our list. Like when you have to do revision over revision, make sure that you have that in your contract and make sure that you're getting paid for those revisions. Like, I always include 1, 2 max. And then if there's any more, well, it's going to cost some extra because the revisions sometimes take as long as the edit, especially if it's something as silly as I want a new song.
and when you were saying earlier how you go through your footage and you basically select all these good clips and put them in a sequence, and then you'll use the clips from that sequence to build your actual sequence.
Yes.
Am I getting this right? Yeah. So how long should you spend doing that? Like going through the footage and like is
Okay. So what I sell is content packages, right? So for instance, um, I do a lot of talking head stuff, and then I have a B-roll bank where I put that B-roll over, right? What they're talking about. So that's why I'll spend more time of going through that all the footage that I've taken of all the B-roll around their offices, around their warehouse, whatever. Because later on, I'm going to be using that footage for multiple videos, not just one video. When I'm doing in sports, it's not so rigorous. I'm grabbing the best shots, I'm throwing them all on, and then I call them fillers. But if I need a filler shot, worst case, I can go back into my footage bin and I'll find a quick crowd shot that I can throw in that maybe I didn't have on that timeline that I could put in, because I'm not going through every clip. When I'm hired for a content package, I'm going through every clip because I will maximize those clips. I got like sometimes 20, 30 videos to pull out of that B-roll. But for sports, no, I'll grab the best shots, I'll put them on that timeline, I'll get organized, and anything else I can always go back to my footage bin after and get like a whoosh or a cut or something that I want to add a little spice to. You same basically, or no?
yeah, well, I don't really do corporate videos, but yeah, like I said, for me, it's more anyway. It's more about organizing my bins in the most obvious and efficient way possible. So I don't necessarily need to do the footage dump thing. I do it sometimes. Let's say for example, I did like a YouTube video, and in my YouTube video, there's a sequence where I go to a game and I do like a little highlight of me covering that game. There's not going to be a ton of footage, so I'm just going to go through all these moments and put them in a sequence and just quickly pull from that sequence. And it's actually it serves a two purposes basically, because also often when I go to these games, I've been the home team or the league sort of lets me go there just to do my thing, and as I pay them back by just sending them my best clips. So by putting that sequence with all my best clips together, I can just export that sequence, send it to them, and then use it also as my selects for my video. So I do it for that purpose, but other than that, yeah, it just goes straight from the bin. So it's not I don't use it all the time.
That's smart though, because your melt is ready, right? So your export melt for them is ready, and it just saves you time. Now, do you have any favorite tools, plugins, or anything that helps you save time besides the Beyond the Game sports package? Because honestly, your sports package, I'll be honest, I've used it quite a bit. It does save me a lot of time. It really, really does. I know, I tease you a lot on the show about having it, but it has everything in there that you would need for sports videography. So, is there I just plugged your effects package. They save me time, so I give you my answer. What's your answer? You have anything else that's not something that you provide that might be like a cool? You got a cool AI tool or something that you've been using that helps you save time?
Not really an AI plugin or anything like that. Like you said, I definitely use my stuff and my sound effects, my LUTs and visual effects, but it's more about access to libraries. Like, so I like to have access to Motion Array and have access to art lists and places like that, where if I do look for a, well, obviously art lists, there's music, but also if I do look for, I'm looking for a sound effects that not necessarily a sport sound effects, but fits into my, if I have like a fire visual effects, for example, I'll go on Artlist and find like a little like fire sound effects to go with it. And same thing if it's water. I'll go quickly find those sound effects on Artlist instead of going through the rabbit hole of like YouTube and downloading the video and then using it as the just the sound. Like you can do that. Like I do that with commentary sometimes. But for quick sort of things like that, and also Motion Array, you can find little presets and things like that will save you time instead of like working for hours on an effect that you've never done before. Maybe you can find like a quick preset or a little Mogart thing. I'm really focused on Premiere, like in my responses
It's okay. Well, you use
in this
Premiere all the time.
episode. But yeah, like anyway. So yeah, you can go on it. Like having access to those libraries is more like for me the shortcuts is just like trying to find these things that might help you do something quick that you would normally take a lot more time to do yourself. But I don't really have any plugins installed on my Premiere or anything like that because I used to, and then eventually they either discontinued, or now if you want to use them, you need to pay like a subscription. Because back in the day, like let's say you bought plugins for like $50, and now eventually they moved to like a new way where you have to pay like $30 a month. It's like I'm not gonna pay $30 a month so I have access to like five transitions that I like it's just ridiculous. So yeah, so eventually they all stop working, or then you get like a different version of Premiere and then they don't work on that one anymore, so you can't use them for months until they actually come up with an update. So I kind of moved away from plugins and yeah, things like that. And I keep it clean and I use presets that are more like basically built by someone and just saved as a preset. So it's not an actual plugin that goes into the editing software. It's more of a adjustment layer that already has all the keyframes and things like that. And you can just sort of drag and drop it.
You, you know what that? Yeah, well, it's smart. Like I don't even have keyboard shortcuts my own personal keyboard shortcuts. I use the default ones that are in Premiere. The reason why I do that is because I change computers all the time. You do too, right? Like every 2 years or 3 years, you're getting a new computer, and then you gotta remember, "Oh, do I have this? Do I have that?" Oh, I do. So, even having just a subscription like Motion Array for plugins and presets, that seems to be the way to go nowadays because you always have access to it. And even if you were to work on a different system, you can just log into your account. You can click on what you've downloaded and you can find the preset that you have downloaded and find it. So it does save you time. I've tried a couple AI tools and stuff like that. I feel like for video, like I saw your YouTube video recently on how you tried to get the generative fill to do sports, and it's not very good. I feel like it's not there yet. It's coming.
Well, it's good to hold a shot that doesn't have any movement in it. I don't think it's built to like create like a, because I had this conversation in the comments like of a video with someone where it's like, you can't create fake content. And I was like, yeah, that's not what it's for. You're not there to like create a basket being made or a player doing something. It's more, yeah, if I need like 5, 10 extra frames of like a shot, then that's what it's for. But then again, with sports, it needs to be like a dead sort of moment. It can't be a moment where people are running around because it's not going to look good. That's for sure.
One tool that I have been using a little bit more for opening slates or titling and stuff is Canva. They have a pretty good AI tool where you can explain to it what you want to do. You have to give some pretty decent prompts, and it does take a couple of good prompts to get what you want. But you can get some good title effects and opening sequences through the Canva app, which honestly, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I'd be like, get out of here. I wouldn't even touch it. But I've been using it because it does save time, and I had some clients who already had some templates that they really wanted to continue using, so it forced me to use it. And yeah, I think it's a pretty good, cool tool that you can use as a different option. So I think it's worth $150 for the year for Canva because you will use it. Like we use it for thumbnails. Um, I mean, you could use it for Instagram posts. You could use it for anything you need. But for titling for video, it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. Yeah. So that's my little piece of advice. Now let's talk about mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that can cost you some time before we wrap this up?
Well, I think, like you said, like spending too much time watching a video, that's definitely one that's going to cost you a lot of time. Um, Another one is to just, well, often it's the same people that do that mistake as well, is like just doing everything chronologically, like just sort of starting like working on the first 5 seconds, and then the next five, and then the next five. Because every time you do that, you start watching from the start, and you're also like building in a way that you might run out of good content midway through your video, where you're better to start with the big moments and then fill the gaps, sort of thing. That will save you a lot of time just from a psychological like point of view. It'll work faster than trying to, because then you'll regret putting something too early, or you'll wonder, that could potentially work way better in my big moment there, but now I've got nothing there. But if I move this one, I've spent hours working on this, and now I got to tweak it to work there and find something else to it. Like, so yeah, so you end up losing a lot of time doing that. But otherwise, the only other mistake I can think of is not saving enough and losing if your computer crashes, something like that. So a good auto save once in a while is always helpful. Knowing what you get into as well. Like if you're filming 4K, make sure you got a computer that can actually handle it. Because otherwise, yeah, it's gonna take you a lot of time if your computer is always sort of pausing and stuttering, and it's never really playing smoothly. You might as well film in 1080p and save yourself hours of editing. But yeah, that's all I can think of. You have any others?
No, I think hitting save is the biggest thing because there's nothing worse than your computer crashing and your files project's not saved. The only other issue that I ever had is one time on export I wasn't able to export my project because I ended up with a corrupt file. So basically, I had to like delete that file, re-import a file, and do this whole workaround. I forget it wasn't as easy as that, but I had a couple of corrupt files because I was working with proxies on a slower computer, and it was just a nightmare. Um, so I had to re-import stuff and redo it, and it worked out. But that was an issue of having 4K footage on a slower computer and not being able to handle it. So yeah, make sure your computer's up to spec and that you're working within the proper footage that your computer can handle because even your hard drives, like our Macs, they run better on SSDs. They're faster than a regular hard drive. So make sure you know what you're using because that will speed up your time. But except for that, I mean, the only other silly mistakes that I have is like, I get easily distracted while I'm editing and someone calls or, an email or I see a cool video. That's all self-imposed, self-sabotage, slowing me down. So, try and be disciplined. I think discipline is the one key that will help you edit faster. And honestly, the more you edit, the faster you're going to get, the more efficient you're going to get, the better you're going to get. You're going to come up with your own system because it's not a one size fits all. Like we do some similar things because we did work together for so many years. But I'm sure the way that I tackle a project and you tackle a project are completely different, the way that we think about it. And everyone's going to have that different thing.
Mine
So
is good and yours is bad.
that's it. That's it. Yours is amazing. And mine is like, "Meh."
Yeah.
So just trust the process and practice, 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 and you will get faster, better. And my biggest advice I can give to newbies is don't try and be perfect, man. Don't worry about perfection. Try and tell a good story. Try and be happy. Is this something that you would watch? If it is, then you're okay, man. Like your next video is going to be better. Cause I always laugh. I always see this quote online sometimes like your first video is going to suck. Your second video is going to suck too. But you know what? Your 100th video, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So just keep editing, keep going, and you'll get faster and better every time.
You're like a meme.
I end on
Human being.
motivational speeches for you. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
can
to get you
tell.
to become a better editor like me. Okay.
I feel like I'm doing a podcast with what's his name, Alex Hermosi or one of those guys.
That's it. It is. I might be reading his book lately on
Mm.
Audible. So, well, not reading it. I'm listening to it at the gym. You know. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare. Hopefully, some of these tips can make you a faster, more organized editor. These are things that we try to do daily, and you know, it isn't a challenge. It is an adjustment, especially in today's society when you got a cell phone, you got a whole bunch of texts and DMs. You know, he's got people sliding into his DMs all the time. So it definitely is hard to stay focused. But I mean, block your time, put your phone away, and just tackle your projects, and you will become faster. All right. Take care, guys.